really, at the end of the day, it's just the matter of a macro market. It's just what happens.
That's why it's really important to have a plan. Have a plan and understand what your goals are.
In fact, my camel out there is suffering right now with a broken back.
So I actually found Pepe when it was only a couple of hours old, and I'm like, oh, this is a funny meme.
Oh my god.
Yo! Who is this degen?
The old man is swing trading over years at a time. And it's like, that's where the real money is made.
The answer is impermanent loss. With single-sided staking, you don't have to worry about impermanent loss.
If you're aware, if you're disciplined, you can hone that into further financial growth.
Financial freedom, so we can actually live life and not have to be constantly living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, more or less, right?
Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and D-gentlemen of all ages. We're back for episode number 14 of Book Club. These numbers are starting to rack up pretty quick. I'm happy to hear that. Tonight, we are covering Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, a.k.a. The Story of Success. I do have a first-most apology to the audience. We were unable to get RG3 onto the stream tonight. It sounded like some personal stuff came up over there, so we wish him and his family all the best, and I know that we will stream together some other time, so none of us are sweating it. And regardless, we are still going to bring you the best stream that we possibly can, talking about this book, which was the recommendation from our mentor. So with that being said, I have a cast of the usual suspects with me tonight, starting off with my co-host, Nate. How's it going, man?
It's going great. I'm having lots of fun meme trading over here in Solana. So yeah.
Look, we don't call it the DGen Roundtable for nothing.
Yeah. Hey, not financial advice. This is money I literally can throw away. Okay, guys. So don't get mad at me.
Exactly. It's the existing casino chip, so it's no new money. We are joined by a tag team tonight. We have Sam from Bungalows for Bachelors and Mr. Pumpkin. How we doing, Sam?
Oh, we're doing just fine, both of us. He's lazy and I'm not, so we make a good team.
He looks really comfy there. I think he's probably dead asleep, so.
Yeah, that's before I start yelling, though, so we'll see.
Fair enough. All right, we're joined by the last member of the panel and a longtime favorite and very consistent member of the panel, so we do thank him a lot for that, and that is Will Stevenson. How's it going, man?
Aloha, amigos. Life is good. I've been spending all day painting, and so I've you can't see it, but underneath my eyes, there's like yellow paint, and then there's yellow paint up here. I was gonna go take like a what do you call it, acetone or like rubbing alcohol shower, but I just didn't have time to do that before we went on stream, so I'm covered in paint. But life is good. This has been an excellent book, bro. I listened to the overview of this book probably 4 times, and then I was on my second listen through today, like when we started like doing the prep and the stuff for this show, and so it's absolutely fantastic. So I'm super stoked for us to talk about it. Let's get right on into it, man.
Perfect. All right. We are going to dive into Outliers. I'm not going to do the normal rundown of the entire chapter summary per se, because I want to kick it off with a question for our panel and ask these gentlemen, what do they think the overall thesis of the book was? So, Nate, we can start off with you.
I would say the thesis of the book is kind of almost like a hopeful one where it's not necessarily, you can make your own success based on taking the opportunities that come to you, and then also having the hard work of the skills that you put into them all kind of like come together in this perfect storm.
Fair enough. All right, kick it over to Sam.
Okay, the takeaway from this book, guys, is that you're not special. No one's coming to save you. And the only thing that might make you slightly stand out in this world is if you work your ass off and have a bunch of opportunities put in front of you so that you can have the opportunity to work your ass off. So sorry for the cursing if that's not allowed, but you know what? That's the takeaway, is that like, man, what a, like, it's not that the world is rigged, right? But everyone's got this American dream of like, if you just work hard, you'll make it. And like, if you work harder than everybody else, your odds are going to be way higher. You're going to make it somehow, probably. But like, to get these insane results, it's the combination of the working hard and the opportunities. So That's my takeaway. That makes me feel not special, which is fine.
Okay, well, I'll kick it over to Will.
I have a similar the end result is similar, but I've found a different spin to put on it, and that's that like there's things that you can max out that are within your control, and then there's things that like it's up to your parents to max out that are within their control. And then there's circumstances that are totally out of your control, and you just have to like work best within the world that you live in, and like the hand that you're dealt and all that stuff. Like a lot of these people, a lot of these outliers, they rose to their levels that they are because they were in the right place at the right time, and that's not necessarily something that you can always foster and create. But if you know that you have a certain goal, you have a certain aim, then you can place yourself in better positions. So like let's say for like just to kind of put a pin in it, the whole point is just to like to maximize everything, not only like the hard work, but also like put yourself in lucky scenarios as best you can by knowing these things, and like and knowing the fact that like it's not all just hard work. It's also like hard work in conjunction with good placement allows you to be like, hey, I shouldn't just focus on hard work. I should also focus on being in the right place at the right time. So this just it puts more knowledge pieces on the table for a person to manipulate and maneuver around in life. And so like there's a lot of people that would just work hard and then they'll never see any results because they're working hard at the wrong thing at the wrong place in the wrong time. And it's like they might never realize that. But now having this knowledge, like people can use that, and people can just come to terms with like, hey, I might just be in the wrong spot at the wrong time. I have to redivert and redo something, like move on to something else. So that's the takeaway that I got from the book is know where you're at and know where you're going and know more things.
I think you guys all have some good takes from the overall view of this one. I would have to say for me, this book feels like a more in-depth quantification of business luck. So if you remember back from when we covered The Richest Man in Babylon, where they posed the question, what are the components of like a lucky person? And the basic answer back then was luck is effectively when preparation meets opportunity. In this one, it almost goes kind of down, or it does go down like the butterfly effect kind of path, which is trying to look at literal causation and understand why certain people are successful in certain times. Because as we'll cover, the book goes through a lot of case studies about different people throughout time, or the different kind of like categories of people and why they were successful in that time, and like really breaking down the nitty gritty of like why these outliers, name of the book, why they exist. And it's the story of success. It is talking about not just the people that did well, but the people that hit that 1,000-point home run, as we like to talk about when it comes to the Alex Hormozy principle. So I will say this, from reading the book back, it's definitely a dose of reality. What I mean by that is kind of along the lines of what Sam was saying, which is there's definitely a component of the stuff they talk about here, which is that you're not special. You are just a product of your time, and you got to understand how you fit in your time and how that allows you to find that competitive edge that no one else has had before, but you have found yourself. So it's definitely one of those. I will also say this can be, for people that have not done a whole lot of self-reflection and introspection, this could be a very uncomfortable book. And if you are a bad actor or looking to nitpick and just cause problems, this is arguably, you could misconstrue some of the things that are in this book to be almost borderline racist per se, because it actually looks at epidemiology and like lineage and where you come from, and like how different languages and cultures affect the brain and efficiency, and literally by the processing power of the human brain and the language you choose to speak and learn, that can affect your outcome. So I do say this is the book that is definitely intended for some more mature audiences who are ready to like really take it on. But at the same time, I still think it's valuable stuff. What do you guys think about that take?
I want to hop in here real quick, and because you'd brought up a good point that I wanted to touch on with the like the potential for people to misinterpret this book as having like racist implications. So one thing that a lot of folks get wrong regarding racism is that it's Like they think that pointing out like they think that pointing out commonalities or associative patterns or things like that is racist. It's not racist to notice patterns. What is racist is to act like hateful towards people. So to like observe that something is happening commonly amongst like a whole bunch of like groups of people of XYZ, like skin color, race preference, culture sort of thing, like where they come from in their world, whatever. It's not racist to observe stuff. What the term racism is useful when it's applied to people being assholes to other people. So like if I say, hey, that person is fat, that's not me being like a rude person. That's me having observational skills and then being able to comment on like what is reality. But if I say like, hey, get the fuck out of my shop, you asshole, you're like too, I don't know, tall or something, like then that's me being an asshole, right? So
for sure. Not
there's a
to bury the
difference.
lead on this one too much,
Yeah.
but the specific thing that we are alluding to is that later on in the book, there are, I think, 2 chapters that specifically cover the stereotype of why people think Asians are good at math, and is
Yeah.
there a legitimate logical explanation to explain it? And hint, yes, there is. Like, there's cultural reasons. There's also linguistics reasons. Like, literally, the Chinese language, mathematically speaking, is written to just be faster and more efficient for thinking and speaking and writing numbers, so that it literally takes you less time to like say a math problem outside like out loud. Excuse me. But yeah.
we have our producer in the comments. Will's version of being rude. Get out of my store. You're too tall. I was going to say something different, and then I realized I'm on YouTube, and I don't want people clipping me being too extravagant. Like if I was just talking with you guys, and this wasn't being recorded, and like this could not be held over my head like for eternity, then there would be different things said. But like I said that in jest, like as a like oh, hold on, I'm live right now, and this is a channel that's bigger than just me. So
I would argue that's called some practical intelligence right there.
Yeah, practical intelligence was another thing that they touch on in this book. For those of you guys who have not read this book, I highly recommend it. This is definitely one on the must reads. But let's get some of the rest of the panel in on this discussion. Zenith, what was your original point before I distracted us off on the racism topic?
Oh, no, you're good. My point was that I think this is a book intended for mature audiences. I actually found this, I was looking for summaries just to have like a bullet point list to go off of. And there was one of them that had this little excerpt at the end. It says, who would I recommend this summary to? And it's, I would recommend this to the 21-year-old who has a weakness to listening to motivational talks, who's sure that if he just keeps working hard every day, he'll eventually get his dreams. And it's like, this does kind of take shots at that Sigma grind set hustle bro. Like, I listen to 12 TED Talks a day, therefore there's value in it. Like, this book kind of does take shots at that kind of person, I'd argue.
Which is good because
it's building, it's learning. It's learning that. Go for it.
I was just gonna say that like all concepts, all ideas, all religions, all things need to be tested. And if your shit gets tested and it gets broken, then that means that it's not good, right? So if you're able to break someone's resolve, if you're able to break someone's fence, if you're able to break someone's like guards or something, then that means it wasn't good. So like any sort of like mindset without constant testing is subject to fail. And we want to be using the best like gates to keep our houses safe. And so like it's important to know, hey, if I have a lock on my gate, will the lock actually hold if somebody goes up and like yanks on it? Or if somebody like tries to hit it with a hammer? Like you want to know just how strong the things are that you're relying on. And if you're relying on this, Sigma grind set to go through life and become successful, and then somebody comes along and wrecks it with a funny book that talks about like, hey, you're not special, asshole. Like, you have to not only work hard, but you have to work hard like in the right direction at the right time. So like all of this is to say like it's not just one thing. Look at many things. Look at all the pictures and all the aspects.
All right, with that being said, let's get into it. I want to talk about the beginning, chapter 1. It is aptly called the Matthew effect because it is specifically based off of a verse from Matthew 25. I'm going to read it real quick, but this is probably a concept that we've touched on once or twice before. And this comes from the parables of the master who leaves his farm and his seeds to, I think, 3 stewards, and then comes back and sees what they have done with it. One of them has taken the seeds and just hid them away in a box and kept them perfect. The other lost the seeds, and then the last one actually grew crops and farmed it effectively. And the story goes that the one who grew the crops, he said that you have done well. You've been a good steward of my whatever I left you. Therefore, I will continue to entrust you with more and more. The guy who did nothing, he says, you fool, you've done nothing. You've squandered this effectively. This was an opportunity and you did nothing. And then the last guy who lost it, he says, you're the worst. You have actively squandered this and done nothing productive. So here we go. Matthew 25:28-30. Therefore, take the talent from him and give it to the one who has 10 talents. For everyone who has, more shall be given, and he will have an abundance. But the one who does not have, even what he has will be taken away from him. And throw that worthless servant into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and the gnashing of teeth. Lovely topic to start off on. Gentlemen, this chapter is the one that deals with sports and your birth age. How does that Bible verse fall into what this book is trying to convey?
Well, it's all about having good fertile ground to build on, right? Or to grow. So, I mean, ultimately what this book is talking about is all about, hey, you want to be building up skills that you can use for when the opportunity comes throughout your life. The thing about life is that there's always opportunities. There's tons of them every single day. But if you have a really good skill, that's when you can truly make it. That's when you can truly become extremely successful, right? So you're watching these opportunities that life keeps throwing at you and saying, is this the one that I can use my skill for? Is this the one I can use my skill for? And so for the successful one, he has built himself or grown, his own skills, his ability to be able to become successful when that opportunity comes through. Whereas like the fool is just like, oh, no, I'm just not going to do anything with it.
I hear you, but more in regards to the concept of to the people who have, more will be given, and the people who do not have, even more will be taken away. That's kind of the question I'm starting with here. And I think that this is the first examination that kind of gets built on in the rest of the book. So specifically when we talk about the examination of like the Canadian Hockey League, they ask the question, like, what birth month are the majority of the hockey professionals born in? And the answer is January, February, and then maybe March. And the reason for this is that the cutoff for the age bracket is the January 1st. And that effectively translates to, if you are born in those first 3 months, you are technically older than the rest of your peers by up to 9, 10, 11 months. And then at this point, once you start separating people out early on, this can create a compounding effect. And I think the compounding effect is why this book starts with this chapter, and why they also call it the Matthew effect, because it's the idea of, to those who have the most, more will be giving, and to those who have the least, more will be taken away. So
like the concept is like, you don't invest in if you're a business owner, you don't invest in your worst employees, right? You put more effort into your shining stars. You don't, like, if you want a good return on something, like, let's say that you've got a bunch of cryptocurrencies, right? Let's say that for whatever reason you've got Bitcoin, you've got Monero, and you've got Pepe, right? Or actually that's a bad example. You've got Bitcoin, you've got Monero, and you've got XRP, right? If you notice that one of these coins is doing well, then you're going to put more effort, more value, more attention, more focus into the one that's doing well, more so than the ones that are not doing well, because like you want your stuff that you have that's working to get better. It's the same reason. So like in the book, they talk about hockey players basically needing to be born at the beginning of the year, because the cutoff time for a 10-year-old is January 1st, or it's January 1st. So kids that are born as close to that cutoff as possible, they have the entire year's worth of growth to reach. Like a kid born January 2nd is 1 year old, when like the kid born on December 31st is now 2 years old. Essentially they're the same age, right? Effectively. But the kid that's born on, or no, excuse me, the kid born on December 31st would reach 2 by the time that the kid that's in the January category is still 1. So the kid that's born in January has that entire year cycle to like grow and develop and become like like have an entire year's worth of childhood development to get good at something before this hockey age cutoff range starts. And so they generally get selected in the very beginning when kids are, sorted through to determine like which ones are the one that we're going to send to the next hockey season and everything. And so because these kids have essentially an entire year cycle worth of like growth and development more than the kids that are born like just a couple days prior that like are in the next age cutoff group. um they have like that whole year's worth advantage. So I kind of fucked up my analogy there and my little whole train of thought, but do you kind of pick up what I'm putting down?
We do. And then to follow it on and get to the end of this analogy per se, because the point of the chapter is not to talk about Canadian hockey. The point is to talk about a compounding effect that can happen early on that will ultimately describe that normal distribution of outcomes that you get 10, 15, 20 years down the road, which is that in the like Canadian hockey, like youth hockey in particular, you start getting skill-based determinations around like age 9 or 10, I think they said, which is this is when you start getting like the competitive travel teams versus the local teams versus the pickup teams. And the reason that if you are older, it means you're physically alive for more time. So chances are you're bigger, faster, stronger, more coordinated, possibly have more skill. And now that you have this very early cutoff time, what's happening is that you're effectively taking age maturation from like human growth perspective compared to like pure skill and ability. And then you're kind of substituting skill and ability just for size, speed, and athleticism based on how old they are. And then what ends up happening is that now you've given people more opportunity to play more, have more practices, have theoretically better coaches, play against a higher level of competition. And this is going to continue to go on for the next like 5-10 years. So by the time that these kids are like 18 years old, there's going to be a stark difference, like head and shoulders, between the people that played on the travel teams versus the people that didn't make those cuts when they were 9 and 10 years old. And that's why when you get to that very tip of the bell curve, the professional league, you start to see that weird anomaly where it's like 75% of the players are born in those like first 2 or 3 months. And like statistically, it should, like, if it was a perfect world, quote unquote, you would see a perfectly flat distribution. But instead, we see a very skewed distribution for those months in particular. And they also examine the same thing when it comes to Major League Baseball, which has a different cutoff time for that because it's more of an American sport and they go off of school year. And so that translates to, instead of being that January, February, March, it becomes August, September, October, because that's when the school cutoff date is for the years. And baseball very predominantly played in like middle school and high school. So you get a lot of the reps in, so that when you get to the major leagues for them, they're skewed in the same way, but at a different measuring point based purely off of a singular cutoff date. So the reason that we start with this chapter is I think it highlights the compounding effect, which the book then tries to illustrate throughout the rest of the examples it shows, which is that small things early on can compound and eventually become massive snowballs.
Another,
Sam,
I was just going to, I'll throw out this other little example right quick, and then we'll toss it over to Sam. But I wanted to say they also talked about, and this is something that the parent, like, if you guys don't care about hockey, cool beans, excellent. But for the folks at home, some like actionable information out of this whole thing is they talk about holding kids back a year if they're like just barely gonna make the age cutoff to be in whatever public school bracket you're in, right? So it's like, I don't know what the age is and how it works or something, but like if a kid's like 3 years old, they start kindergarten, and like a kid's like almost about to like turn 3, or the kid like just technically turned 3, you'll do better if you hold your kid back for a year, because your kid will be older, larger, taller, more like mentally ready, rather than like, oh, he just barely technically like made the qualification thing. Kids that are older in grades do better and receive more attention, and like they learn faster than the kids like that are the younger ones in the grade. So that is something to think about if you're a parent out there in the audience and you've got kids and you're for whatever fucking reason you're sending them to public school. Don't do that. But if you're gonna do it, hold them like, and you have the option to hold them back a year, Or if you're a young budding family, right, and you know that like you guys are trying to get pregnant and stuff, like you can try and time the fertility to get your children to be born at a certain part of the year in order to be a good hockey player, or in order to be like have the option to be held back, or not held back, excuse me, but start kindergarten at the end of being age 4 rather than at the beginning of age 4. Something like all along those lines. Like you can start to get to the point where you can time fertility, and you can time, like, when you're going to go have your nasty romp in the woods or whatever to go conceive children and stuff. And then like you can then have your kids spaced out throughout the year, like whether you want your kid to be a hockey player and be like born as close to January 1st as possible, or if you want your kid to be a baseball player, when was that one, like September or January or something. But anyways, that was my point, is like these are things that you can consider as a parent that will help you better enable your child to be set up for a successful future. I want to toss it over to Sam, like you were doing a little bit ago, Zenith, and
I
see what he's got.
am ready to piggyback right off of that, because I'm actually going to come at it with a little bit of a right hook. And
Okay.
Here's what I think about that. In my experience, I was always the youngest in all my classes. I was right on that cusp, right? And so I was always the young one. And I had a friend that I grew up with who, we aged at the same rate because, both humans. And he was like a few days older than me, but he ended up like in the grade below me because his parents decided to go one way. I guess my parents decided to go the other way, right? And so what was noticeable was that while we're both the same age, like when you think about opportunity and the time that you have in life, you got to think about it starting from zero, right? So me starting from zero, like you could think about it in the perspective of like what Will just said, which is what I interpreted Will said, which is that when you put your kids in a grade, if you want them to perform better and have better opportunities than the other kids, you want them to be the older ones of the grade. I would say that you would want the opposite situation, because most of the time in most schools, your kid's going to be limited by what they're teaching. Like we have the capability of learning so much more than like what we're actually taught. And so on an absolute scale, I was learning the quantity of information I was learning was an entire year ahead of my friend who was older than me. And so in the scale of life, I've got a year advantage on him. Like when I'm 27, I'm going to know like one more year's worth of life experience than him in like terms of schooling and all that. And like, once you get older and get into college and like other stuff changes, like that matters less, but certainly in the beginning, it makes a difference. So like, while you might be disadvantaged in terms of like the age gap in the beginning of like mentally being able to like pick up on stuff, you are like life wise, you're going to be challenged more, and that's going to benefit you more. That's what I would say.
That makes good sense. And I'll say this is actually this is an excellent segue towards away from the baseball and hockey analogy and more towards the entirety of life analogy, which is that they go on later in the book to talk about specifically people are kind of the product of their age, which is that your maximum potential for what you can achieve in life is somewhat determined based on literally the time that you live in. What I mean by that is they specifically say that if you wanted to be an oil baron or a fantastic entrepreneur, chances are you need to be born in the mid 1850s or 60s. So that way you became the Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts, all those folks in the 1910s, when that was the time to do that. Additionally, there's no more time to be Bill Gates, because Bill Gates was one of the progenitors of just personal computing, not mass like company building size computers, but PCs. Like they revolutionized that, and chances are to be part of that crowd, you had to be born back when Bill Gates was born. And I think that was like 50s, I want to say. And then on top of that, they even say like, look, we're getting past the time where it's no longer the time to be someone like Zuckerberg or who's the guy that originally made Twitter?
Elon Musk.
Jack Dorsey.
Jack Dorsey, thank you. He's like, yeah, look at that. Like all those kinds of tech billionaires are born in like the 1980s. It's like the reason that there's all these like weird chunks of like group years of people that all hit it off in similar ways in certain times is because whatever time they were living in provided the opportunity and there was the need and the desire for what they were trying to offer, on top of all the other things that do make successful people, which is like dedication, perseverance, hard work, a good bit of like technical acumen, maybe some intelligence along the way. It's like this, it really does start to quantify like that luck component of like who becomes the billionaires. Because like there's only, I think there's less than 1,000 in the United States anyways. I wouldn't be surprised if it's less than 100, but yeah. How do you guys feel about that idea?
Well, I mean, that's the point that I've been trying to make about cultivating your skills, you know. It didn't, I mean, I'm going to keep hammering it because this is the main thing that hilarious enough, I had to kind of discover on my own. I had to kind of like philosophize this on my own. And then all of a sudden, of course, it's in a book right here. So it's like, oh, missed out on that one, I guess, but whatever. But again, you know, like life throws opportunities at you constantly. You know, it's just all about what you've cultivated, what your skill sets have cultivated, and the knowledge that the opportunities are there. You know, so yeah, you're just kind of waiting for this to happen.
Yeah, the book absolutely does press the importance of like being good at your craft, being, I don't know, just intelligently able to move around a society or human interactions, and then just doing the hard work and showing up every day. There's zero substitute for that. It's like if you look at all the outliers that the book talks about, all the hyper successful people, that foundation is there. We're just looking at that extra 1 or 2% that separates like why these people did well now as opposed to other times. But yeah, Nate, you're entirely correct. It's you got to have that base before you even start talking about some of the concepts that the book really wants to like cover later on.
Yeah. And the biggest, most important thing about anyone who has been incredibly successful is that they saw the opportunity and they worked to actually make it happen. That's the thing. It's like you can take the opportunity, but you have to actually make it happen. You know, it doesn't just magically poof, there it is. Yay. You know?
And then also, so like to bring a little bit like more humility back around is just like, you're probably not, like most people need to realize you're probably not going to be the 1 in a billion person. So like, let's stop shooting at the stars, but like, let's be realistic about the goals that we're capable, like that we can achieve. And then also be realistic about the places that we should shoot for. If you're trying to shoot to be the next Bill Gates, you know, go for it. Just understand that like the failure rate is extremely high. So like, you have to consider with everything that you're doing, like what is my ability to like leverage an effective outcome of what I want? Am I better served doing like something that I have a 1 in 1,000 chance of succeeding, or focusing my efforts in a 1 in 10, or a 1 in 5, or a 1 in 3, right? So like if you're trying to be the next like super cool awesome thing, like odds are you're not even going to know it until like Billy Gates didn't know that he was going to be like the king of Microsoft, and you know, and Bill Joy didn't know that he was going to be the king of the internet, like the king of the internet coding. And I'm willing to bet that Zuckerberg and like Mother Teresa and, you know, Genghis Khan, like they didn't know that they were going to be the people like at the top of the food chain that they were. They did the right things at the right time, and they got fed the right deck. And so like as a normal person, very likely listening to this podcast of us talking, like you have to realize you're probably a normal person. We're probably all normal, and so we have to like play our cards as best as we can, and just do the like, we have to eat a slice of reality pie, and we have to like max out our stats as best as possible, and then, you know, go charging on in. And you know, maybe we'll be lucky and we'll get that lucky stack, just like Billy Gates getting like in just the right place, just the right time to like practice and get his 10,000 hours in on that magical computery thing that he found.
Definitely. I know we kind of talk about like this is a mature book and it's kind of telling you that you're not special. However, at the same time, the book is like, it's not like a doom and gloom kind of thing per se. It's just like, hey, we all want to be Bill Gates. We all want to be Mark Zuckerberg, but realize that those people are legitimately like once, twice, maybe 3 times in a generation. Like they are so far on the end of the bell curve they are the 4, 5, and 6 standard deviations, not the 1, 2, and 3, which is like 68% of your population, 95% of your population, 99% of your population. We're talking like 0.00001% of your population. Like, and the point of the book when it talks about this, it's not, in my opinion, I don't think it's trying to convey the idea that like, give up on your dreams, you will never amount to anything unless you're chosen by God. It's like, no, hey, take everything with a grain of salt. If you do these things, chances are you're still going to absolutely crush it in life, but just understand, like, you're probably not going to make it on the Mount Rushmore of whatever field you're in. And that's fine. Am I crazy here?
You know,
I like it.
Isn't there
Go for it, Nate. What you got?
I was just wondering if you know the statistic for to become the foremost world's expert in a certain field, you have to do how much studying? I think.
Oh, are you talking about the 10,000 hour rule?
Yeah.
I think
So
that's slightly different.
To become a master, you need at least 10,000 hours.
Mhm.
The key word
Yeah,
there
but
is at least. It is the minimum requirement.
Yeah, there's a number though that you enable to become like the world's foremost authority. There's a certain amount of studying that you can do per day, and I think it was like 6 hours per day for like 2 years, and you'll have basically done more than everyone else has. But yeah, no, that was just something that made me think of that.
I want to say there's another study that I saw. It was like, if you want, like in any skill or like activity, if you want to be like the 90th percentile, it was like you only have to practice like 17 minutes a day. And then collectively over 1 year, that will equate to you have more time and skill than 90% of the population in that certain thing. So let's do some math. We got the old calculator here. That is about 100 hours. So 100 hours into anything is probably going to get you really far. But then, like Nate, like you're saying, if we use it 6 hours a day for 2 years, that's 4,380.
For the folks at home who are wondering how many hours there are in an entire human lifetime, this is 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, for roughly 78 years. That's the average human lifespan. You're looking at just a little bit over 675,000, right? So that's 24 hours a day. Now, you're not going to be doing something 24 hours a day. So we're going to cut out at least like 12 hours for, we'll just say you have 5 hours a day of free time, right? If you spend 5 hours a day for your entire life doing something, you'll have spent 142,000 hours doing that thing. So if we say you've got 5 hours of free time a day, right? That's pretty generous-ish if you discount 8 hours of work, traveling to and from, doing laundry, cooking, whatever, going to the bathroom and petting your dog and all that stuff. Like, your actual free time that you can spend doing stuff, if we say 5 hours a day, you got 140,000 hours that you can dedicate in your life to doing stuff, right? And that's including from like 0 to 5 where you can actually do things, and et cetera, et cetera. So just think, like, if I've got 140 hours or 140,000 hours of potential, like, ability to learn and master things, that's 14 skills you can master, right? We'll say 13 just to cut off, like, some time in the beginning, time in the end. 13, 12, something like that. You've got like 10 skills or something that you can master, like truly master, in a lifetime. And most people, like, they don't spend their lifetime, or they don't spend their free time working on a skill. If you spend your free time, like, consuming entertainment, like whether it's TV or video games or porn or smoking dope or whatever the hell, right? Like, if you spend your free time not getting better at a particular skill or task or something like that, then you're cutting out even more hours out of that total, like, lifespan of activity. But just some numbers for folks to think about. You've got about 10 to 12 if you maximize your free time towards skill building. You got 10 or 12 skills that you can master truthfully in a lifetime. So just some things to consider there.
That makes good sense for sure. It kind of falls in line in my brain with those calendars where it's like every week you mark off a little box and it has all the boxes that is your lifetime to give you that,
the momentum,
that visual representation of the progress bar of life.
Ooh, that reminds
You
me.
can
I gotta
either
buy
look at
one
it.
for Sam. Sam and I. I've said I would do that a long time ago, and I have forgotten. So now I'm saying it on stream. So now I have to do it very quickly.
Perfect. All right, this is a good transition into the 10,000 hours stuff. So I had a few notes that I wrote down from the book. First one we already talked about says that true mastery of something requires a minimum of 10,000 hours of practice. And then specifically, they gave the example of Mozart and what this kind of looks like. They said that if you go back and you actually look at Mozart's like first works and the actual compositions that he made, they weren't anything incredible or really that great. They said that his first masterpiece effectively happened about 10 years into his practice when he was 21. And it really shows that like this kid had been playing piano for literally like 10 years and trying to write music and learning from his father, who was a music composer. It took 10 years with even all that just to get that first true masterpiece work. And then a quote that I have written down for this one is that practice isn't the thing that you do when you are good. It is what makes you good. And that is more in reference to the opportunity that is required to really get that 10,000 hours. Because like we talked about, we even ran through some simple calculations. Like it takes a long time to hit 10,000 hours, which means that oftentimes if you want to hit that really young, like some of these proteges and all the virtuosos and whatever, that means that you need to have a competitive advantage that not a whole lot of other people have, specifically so that you can kind of get ahead of the bell curve. And what I mean by that is it's one of those things where it's like similar to the Alex Ramosi $100 million offers concept, where it's like if you have knowledge that everyone else has, because everyone else has that knowledge, it's worth less like on an open market. However, if you are one of 5 people in the world that have specific knowledge, that knowledge that you possess is infinitely more valuable because of scarcity. This is a similar concept that the book talks about in this chapter, which is the idea of exclusive competitive advantage access to early skill building is part of the thing that really makes these outliers that they talk about in the book. I can't remember who the guy who created Unix, the software encoding language for, was that the internet guy?
The
Will,
guy
can
who
you bail me out?
the guy who wrote the Unix code, or not Unix
Yes.
code, excuse me. That was Bill Joy.
Bill Joy.
Linux, right? Linux or
maybe. I can't
Hang on.
remember.
So Bill Joy is the guy
Steve
who
Wozniak.
created the internet.
It might have been Wozniak, yeah. The point of this one being is that if you look at this story in particular, this is one of the stories about kind of the dawn of personal computing. And the reason that this guy got so good at what he did is because he was one of the first people that really had that 10,000 hours. And the way that he got it was very unique. And his story specifically was like, this is back in the days when if you wanted to write a program or a code, you physically had to make cardboard punch cards with like binary on them so that you make a stack of all these cards, you put it into the machine, which is literally the size of multiple rooms. And then it goes through and mechanically does all the operations, all the Boolean operations. And then at the end, you get the output of your code. And this technology at the time was very expensive and very long, like time-wise, lengthy to do, which means that very few people had the ability to run through a lot of iterations or get all those reps in. But what this guy did is he actually had an in with a software company who needed people to help maintain the machine, and then he was able to get access to it at night, and then they also had access to it during the weekends, and then simultaneously the company also was like, yeah, it's fine if you kind of like go really late in the weekends and it kind of becomes Monday morning, but as long as you're not running your stuff by like 7 a.m. on Monday, we don't care. So that is the exclusive and unique access at the time that allows these people to get their 10,000 hours in. And it's one of those things where the book kind of poses the question to you. It's like, yes, you want to be the outlier. Where is your competitive advantage? How are you ahead of the curve in life? And it doesn't explicitly ask you that question, but this is the one that jumped out to me when I was reading it, which is trying to look at the book examples and then figure out, do I in any way fall into this, or am I just more of the building good principles camp? No question there, but feel free to jump in.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, what is the question? I think that
the question is, are you special? The
yeah,
answer is probably not.
Well, yeah, everyone's special, but like you're really not special. You're just another warm meat sack wandering around doing, whatever menial task it is that you do, and then you die eventually. The only thing that makes you special is if you force yourself to like contribute special things to the world. So like if everyone's the same and if everyone's a special snowflake, then nobody's a special snowflake. Right? You might be unique, but you might not be special. So I don't know. Perhaps I'm being pedantic, but I'm a little bit
No.
cynical on that. I say go forge your special stuff. Go make the world a better place.
You absolutely have a point there, which is uniqueness versus special. It's like, yeah, everyone is unique technically, but special in the context of, are you that 1% on the bell curve? Probably not. Right. Any last thoughts on the 10,000 hours topic? Or the general idea of success is a product of the world in which you grow up?
I do think that
I find it
10,000
fascinating it
hours
takes
is the
10,000
work.
hours.
Go ahead, Nate. Go
I
ahead.
think it's fascinating that they actually have that down to a science where it's like, yeah, 10,000 hours, and that's generally how long it takes. I just found it absolutely fascinating.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Going once, going twice.
I like it's a
Cool.
constant. That's all. Let's move on to the next. Or
All right,
actually,
we're taking a break to hit up the chat.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Thank you all for joining us. I know it's a bit different than the usual programming, but it is book club, and I think we're actually doing a good job of hitting what's in the book tonight. So happy to be doing as much. All right, Mrs. Producer, hit me with the comments. Let's say hi to the team. We have the number one cheerleader in the entire crypto space, I'd argue, Tam Tam, saying, good evening, gentlemen. Good evening to you. Thanks for showing up. We appreciate you guys. Up next, Russ. He says he's ready, but are you actually ready? Let us know. Let us know what you think if you were ready for this stream, because we might have gone a different direction than people were expecting. All right, up next we got Hex Glenn. He says, "Hey guys," we say hello to you, good sir. Thanks again for showing up on a Friday night. Of all things, yeah, we do understand. We start at 8 p.m. Eastern time, which is prime, going out and doing all that stuff. But instead, you're choosing to be here with us, talking about this. Maybe you're an outlier. Who knows? And we got one more from Tam Tam. She says, just think of the IQ boost from all those hours tuning into DGen Roundtable. I mean, you're not wrong. We do put we do put out a lot of content. And I'd argue in general, the crypto space is very fond of streaming, which means that we put out a lot of content collectively. Like if you tried to keep up with every live stream that happened in a week, I would argue it wouldn't be more hours than are in the days, but you would be tough trying to cram it in all during your 5 hours of free time. I'll say that much.
It's especially difficult when, Sami takes up, 50% of all of the time.
This is true. The man is an absolute content machine. The rate that he puts out content is astonishing, especially considering it's not live. Like it is recorded content with specific topics that are like pre-thought out and premeditated. Granted, I'm sure he has just a fantastic ability of just doing it live, but still, absolute hats off to the master from down under them over there.
He does have a lot of hats, many hats off.
All right, we are on to a Double Trouble chapter. This was a part 1 and 2. The chapters were called The Trouble with Geniuses. So chapter 1, or it's chapter 3 in the book, but the first part of this duo talks about the concept of IQ can only get you so far, and even only so far on the IQ curve does it really matter. And it also makes an analogy to sports, which is like the average NBA player is about 6'7". So does it matter if you're 6'7" or 6'9" or 7 foot? Like at what point do those diminishing returns really start to show themselves? And the idea is that pretty much once you get like a standard deviation or two above the average, you're not going to see too much more, or you're going to start to see those diminishing returns. And the same thing goes for IQ. The thing that they postulate here is that pretty much anything above an IQ of 120 does not translate to a real world advantage as far as like outcome in life or profession or education even goes. It's more of the IQ can take you so far, but after that, there's a lot of other external factors that are going to get you the rest of the way. And that's where we start into the second part of this 2-chapter part, which is talking about the differences in the geniuses. Specifically, they talk about David Lang versus Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb. And David Lang is one of those people that legitimately has like a 150 plus IQ, but he always bumped up into trouble in academia. Notably, he was on scholarship and needed a class from about like 8 a.m. to get changed to about 11 a.m. because his brother or relative crashed his car, but his employer was willing to drive him to school. And then just because he was unable to like negotiate or convince the college, who honestly didn't give a shit, to change that, he started losing out on grades, started losing out on scholarships, and then eventually kind of just retired and got to the point where he sits on his front porch and thinks about things and has the IQ where he's literally able to think about a topic before going to bed. And by the time he wakes up, he understands it. Conversely, we have Dr. Oppenheimer, who is famous for getting in an argument or spat with a professor, attempting to poison him, and then instead of being sent to jail or anything, was just sent to a bit of counseling instead, and was allowed to continue on and eventually get sought out and picked up for the Manhattan Project and given one of arguably the most important and secretive jobs in the entire nation. Yet despite his past of running with known communists, having possible attempted murder on a rap sheet, yet at the same time, you're still able to convince somebody that he was the man for the job. So how do we get such of this difference between these two gentlemen? And I think that's where this is where the book postulates the idea of practical intelligence, aka knowing how to do things correctly in all the different situations, which is probably something that many a wife are happy to talk about, which is that, yes, your husband is correct. However, he should not have said that during that time and put his foot in his mouth, so to speak, because the repercussion does more damage than the value of just being correct in a certain instance. So, gentlemen, what do you guys think about this this idea of IQ takes you so far, but then after that, there's a lot of other stuff that takes over? Like, what, in your opinion, what do you think are some of those skills to separate the smart from the truly exceptional?
Well, that's social intelligence. I mean, that's all it is. Like emotional intelligence, social intelligence. You can have someone think about this, right? Vitalik. You see Vitalik walk into a room and you're just like, okay, I know you're a 9,000 IQ alien or whatever, but like, Jesus, he's not someone who's going to get a lot of opportunities as far as like a lot of workers go. The only thing that they're interested in is what he created. They don't really care about him as a person at all. And nobody can really see him creating anything, like doing business with him. Right. They can only think about, doing business with the Ethereum Foundation, which is a team of people who actually know how to deal with business people, right? So I don't know. That's just kind of my take on that.
I'm gonna bounce right off of that with like, yes, the social skills, like the soft skills, right? So you can have this crazy smart alien brain and know how to do a whole bunch of technical ability, but at the same time, you're only going to be limited to solving technical problems. Which is generally going to be not involved with other people, right? I may be really good at like hitting a nail on the head with a hammer one strike. And I'm just like, I'm the best at it, right? That's sort of a poor example, but like, that's only going to get me so far. If I don't know how to communicate with a drywaller or communicate with like a banker, I'm not going to be able to do very much aside from drive nails. So, there was, I forget if it was one of the books in the book club we went over earlier, but at some point there was a concept mentioned about children who are, or it might have come from a Ron Paul book, children who are put into school that basically end up focusing just enough on the technical parts of school to get by. And they focus more on the clubs, the activities, the politics of the school, like the groups. They make lots of friend groups. They're they're well known in all of the cliques. People who learn those skills are probably going to end up getting farther because those skills transfer into being able to solve a much wider variety of problems, even if you're not the expert. There's tons of experts out there. You might be better off just knowing how to put them together. So that would be my summary of sort of saying the same thing that Nate said.
I would Michael Sartain. I want to throw it a little bit of what's the word? Oh, are we stuck on one camera right now? Mrs. Producer, help! Oh, there we go. Michael Sartain did a very good job of talking about men leveling up their stats like a Madden football player. How, like, some players have like a lot of speed but not a lot of strength, or not a lot of endurance but a lot of, like, this, that, and the other thing, like technical capacity or whatever. You need, like, if you want to be able to solve as many problems as possible, you need to be as, like, as well rounded as possible. Imagine if Vitalik not only was like super duper incredibly smart, but if like, imagine he was also ripped as shit. You know, think about if Vitalik strode into a room and he was jacked and juicy as fuck, and then not only that, but he had like some Rico Suave social confidence and stuff, and he was really good at talking to people, really good at marketing, and then not only that, like if somebody like busts in to like try and like, I don't know, do some terrorism or something, he then pulls out a gun and he murks him like right there on the spot, like showing physical prowess and like violence competence and stuff. Like just being well rounded in a whole bunch of different aspects, and being able to solve a whole bunch of different problems will allow you to um be able to interact more and more with the world and generate more and more value. And so like I like a person that would come to mind would be like Chuck Norris, right? So Chuck Norris, he's a decent actor, right? He's good at like the karate stuff. He's like a smooth talker. He has like attraction level or whatever, like from back in the day. And he's like a good, like, gentle family man, right? So like he meets all of these different criteria. He's not just some like kung fu master, right? Who doesn't speak and can't act and can't do all these different things. Like the same sort of thing applies, and that's my understanding of this topic is you want to be like well rounded in the amount of problems that you can solve, so that way you can interact with more of the world in a more effective way and make more of a difference.
Will, I think you get a really good point on this one, and it's not. It's being well rounded while also being very proficient at a lot of things. It's not saying you have to be exceptional in any one area, although it definitely helps. This is kind of one of the saying that's kind of morphed over time, which is that being a jack of all trades and a master of none. The original saying was that you're a jack of all trades and a master of one, which is that as a guy, you have all your bases covered, but you still have a specialty on top of that. In regards to the Michael Sartain illusion of like the Madden character, it's like, yes, you want an all-rounded character. However, at the same time, you want all-rounded around that 90th percentile. It's like you don't need to be that 95th, 99th percentile. You just need everything to be 90s. And I think this is the difference between like actually using this idea effectively as opposed to just having it as a cope, which is that you claim, oh, I'm well-rounded. It's like, yes, you are equally mediocre in all of your skills and exceptional nowhere, or even proficient or highly proficient at a few of them. And that's the difference, which is like, it again goes back to the base of just having your shit in one sock, so to speak, and having all your bases squared away. It's that each of the foundational things are where they need to be. It's not that you have a equally flat pile of rubble, but you have a actual solid foundation. And then off that, if you want, you can start to push those percentage points even higher to that like 95th, 99th percentage range.
Exactly. It harkens me
Yeah,
back
this
to
is
like.
what's called the bucket
Go ahead, Nick.
effect, right? So it's like you got a whole bunch of buckets, right? What instead of taking like a single drop in like maybe one or two, you fill one bucket up, then you move over and you fill another bucket up. Next thing you know, you've got several buckets that are all nice and full, and then you can spread the water around for everybody. I'm rich in water.
It reminds me a little bit of Fresh and Fit, talking about, for those of you guys who watch Fresh and Fit, shout out to Myron and Walter. It reminds me of them talking about like the whole money muscles game frame like aspect of attracting women. If you work on just your money and you become really rich, but you have no game savvy, you have no muscles, you don't have any sense of like solidity of character for frame. Like if you only got money, you're gonna have problems in those other three areas. If you only got like muscles, like if you're only attractive and you can't like talk to girls, like and you don't have any money to take them out on dates, like you're going to fail. If you only have frame and you're not attractive and you got no money and you've got no game, then like you're you're not going to be successful with women if you've only got one of those four. Well, you can be successful with women if you've got one of those four things, but like you will be more successful if you well round yourself and you just get a little bit of everything, and then you level them all up. And you can maybe focus on one, but you have to be sufficient, at least like you were saying earlier, Zenith. Like you can bring those numbers up to 95 once you meet like the acceptable criteria for the rest in the category. Like if I'm a 2 on the attractive scale and I've got a lot of money, then I should probably work on bringing my attraction level up by like going to the gym and working out and learning how to like wash my teeth and clean behind my ears and stuff. And same thing vice versa. So I think we've probably beat this dead horse enough. I'm going to toss it back to you, Zenith.
For sure. I'm going to finish out the last bit of this chapter, which is, this is a concept that I think it's one of the ones that can be construed incorrectly, which is the idea of having an entitlement mentality, but from a positive context. Specifically for this one, it talks about a study where they looked at the difference between, I think it's like middle class and more upper class children upbringing. And what the original hypothesis of the experiment was going to be that there's going to be a bunch of different parenting methods, but in the end, what they really found was that there's really two different mindsets that kind of come out of it. And that's regards with how the children interact with the world. One of them is the more standoffish one, which is you are very quiet, reserved. You are trying to be obedient and submissive. You listen to the elders. You don't really question things. The other one is the entitlement mentality. What that means is it's not like you're an entitled, spoiled little child, but it's that it's kind of more of like a low level understanding of what is fair or how things ought to be in certain situations. And the specific example that they give is that there's this kid who's like 10 years, who's like about to turn 10, and he's going to the doctor's office, and the interaction that he has with his parents before going in there is like, hey, do you have any questions you want to ask the doctor? He's like, oh yeah, I have new deodorant. There's like some bumps under my armpit. And they're like, okay, cool. Make sure you mention that. And then when they're actually in the examination room, the kid is the one actually talking with the doctor, and then is not afraid to interject certain things where it's necessary or relevant, where the doctor is like, all right, yeah, here's a chart of like 10-year-olds and where you fall on it. And the kid's like, hey, I'm not 10. I'm like 9 3/4 effectively. And he goes, yeah, same thing. And he goes, yes, but like, that means I'm not exactly going to be on this, correct? And the doctor's like, yes, that makes sense. And then additionally, he has the ability and the wherewithal to be like, when the doctor says like, all right, what's going on? He's like, okay, now is the time for me to bring up my problem, which is the change in deodorant, and then is able to intelligently talk about it. And it's this kind of thing where it's examples in children who are able to maximize their learning opportunities or whatever opportunities in front of them, because they have the ability and the confidence to speak up and keep their self-interest at the forefront without being an asshole. So that is the idea of the entitlement mentality that kind of separates people and allows certain ones to get ahead, as opposed to fall into the pack and just kind of exist to get by. These are the folks that ended up standing out in the study and becoming the exceptional ones. So, gentlemen, what do we think about the entitlement mentality from a positive context, as opposed to being a spoiled, bratty snot?
Okay, you're waiting too long. I'm jumping in. He's got his hand on the mic. So I just wanted to put this quick little thing in here on top of this. One of the things that bothers me in particular about this topic is like bothers in terms of like what parents do with their children. I would argue most of the time. Of course, it depends on like who you're around, but I think the standard is for parents to speak to their children like their children. That is like the standard is not, we're going to speak to our child like an adult, literally from day one. Obviously, they're not going to be able to speak and comprehend and understand like an adult, but we will speak to them as one. Because what's going to happen is it's going to be a default setting. When they start learning how to use the words, they start learning the words to use, what they can mean. Like that base level of being able to assert yourself is already there. So it is I think it's very important for parents to understand that like your kid is going to be able to understand that concept from the very beginning, and it's going to lay this like very underlying, like you're not going to be laying a barrier on top of them from day one just because you pampered or babied them. It's like it's sort of the opposite of entitlement, but like yeah, I think that like yeah, the kids should know how to assert themselves, and like that's just a very specific example of this being applied. That's all I wanted to say.
Absolutely. Otherwise, I agree with you, because otherwise life is going to teach you. And if life teaches you, then it's a really harsh lesson. And that's something that ended up having to happen to me. I had to have life teach me. So, and yeah, it's kind of painful, you know?
Sam, are you okay with talking about your family on
Yes.
stream?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine.
I wanted to, so like Sam's example, this is he's got a lovely daughter and a beautiful son, and he's been doing this with his daughter for like the entire duration of her life, and she's you know, a young kid right now. And I must say that like when I compare her to other kids that I know that are her age, like it is a world of difference interacting with Sam's daughter versus interact or like just observing and like and watching how she goes about and does things. She's incredibly intelligent, and she just like she has been given the tools to interact with the world so well by Sam and by Shane, that like they're like just like his description of you need to talk to your kids like they're you know, just small adults without experience is super duper relevant, and super it yields so many like fantastic results. So I just want to like congratulate you and say like that's something that I've noticed whenever I go and like hang out with other people's kids or other friends of mine who have, you know, kids in the same age range as your children. I can see the difference, and it's just like, wow, this had like an incredible effect, and I'm super duper curious to see what will happen as she gets older. I haven't noticed it in your son yet, obviously, just because of the time span, but just like it is incredible the amount of difference that there is with Sam's children that he employs this technique with versus with other folks' kids that like, you know, oh, how are you doing, honey? You know, it's like baby talking and dog talking and all that shit. So yeah, fantastic stuff, Sam. Very good. I'm just giving you a little bit of social proof.
Hear that, ladies?
Yeah, there you go. He's single. Come and get him. Come and get him.
All right, so I guess back to the point of the entitlement mentality thing, which is that
Yeah.
it's, in my opinion, when I read this, it was not like entitlement per se as we traditionally think about it. It felt to me more of people that are willing to put forward their self-interest and really capitalize on situations.
Bless you.
Excuse me, sorry.
Bless you
I'm
again.
dying over here. All right. It's that people are willing to capitalize on situations and get the most out of it, and it's having social wherewithal to not be a jerk, because then you're actively going to be detrimented by it, but it's still understanding like, hey, I paid to be here, therefore I'm going to make sure that this teacher is answering my questions, the ones that I have. I'm not trying to be a detriment to everyone else. However, at the same time, I'm getting my due out of this. And I think that is one of the key points that they talk about with this chapter, which is this is one of those things that separates smart people from exceptional people, which is this is a difference between just being good at thinking and like logical problems or math or whatever, and then actually translating that into real world practical expertise to, like Will, you were talking about earlier, the idea of building those relationships and being the person that was involved in the clubs and how that's going to get you to build skills and be that well-rounded individual. So this is just honestly just kind of being assertive. Honestly, that's really what it is.
Well, it's okay to act like you earned it if you earned it, right? Like that's confidence. That's a person who is broadcasting like, hey, I understand the world that I live in, and I'm not scared to interact and like have, you know, and assert myself. So like that kind of mentality is attractive. People will flock to that kind of mentality, you know. So it's just a super duper useful thing to do. and very good to foster in children. It's good to foster all good habits in children, but that one especially, because the sooner you start, like the quicker they can get their 10,000 hours of being assertive. And like speaking is a skill. If you spend 10,000 hours speaking, I'm sure that after we've got 10,000 hours of podcasts, we'll probably be pretty fucking good at podcasting. So
maybe
like,
after 10,000 hours, we'll stop saying and me tripping over my own words.
we shall see. Yeah.
Ooh,
But, I mean,
can I lay one quick thing on top of that right here?
Yeah,
so
do it.
Hit it.
10,000 hours on this thing. So the podcasting itself probably helpful in terms of especially being comfortable with the podcasting. But something that, man, I wish Will and I are not physically around each other as much as we used to be. But when we were, one of the things we started engaging in almost immediately was watching yourself doing these things with other people, rewatching your own podcast, being like, okay, when was I talking? Was it cool? Did I say weird things? Like, I would say doing it's a one set of mastery, and spending the time analyzing yourself is an entirely separate set of mastery. That's going to give you that feedback loop of true mastery. That's what I would say.
When you're talking about mastery,
go for it.
When you're talking about mastery, one of the more important things I would say is to go out and realize what your weaknesses are first, but then go out and try and find a coach. Or maybe even it's your friends. Like, how about this, right? You're a little socially awkward, but one of your friends, people love to be around him, right? So, approach him and just be like, hey, can you, when we're in social situations, can you kind of watch me and try and coach me up a little bit about what it is that I'm doing wrong versus, something like you would do instead. That right there is going to go a long, long way to be able to fill up your buckets, so to say.
Dude, and something super important on that, when you're looking for a coach, look for somebody who, and this applies to anything. Try and find someone who is not naturally gifted at the thing that you want to learn. Try and find someone who had to learn to get to that point. Because if you ask a natural, they'll just say, "Oh, just do the thing. It's duh." Like I'm good at this forever. So like, why isn't anyone else good at it? No, you want to find people that had to earn it. And then if you can find people that had to earn it and also have really good teaching and correction skills and communication skills, then boom, you just found yourself a fucking gold mine. And then what you need to do is you need to get that guy on a podcast, and you need to start cranking out content with him, and then start your own little school server and everything. So yes, excellent point, Nate. I like it.
Yeah, and Will, to even give a little more analogy to what you were saying there, this is the exact case study of why certain star athletes make poor coaches, and why some of the best coaches never were those star athletes, because it is an entirely different skill set to be able to translate one to the other. It's pretty much, it's like you were saying, if you go ask a naturally born gifted person at doing a thing, chances are they might not be able to explain it very well or convey it to a person that did not have their exact skill set and build going into whatever the activity was. Excellent.
Yeah, that's what I heard in
stuff.
football. You always go for coaches that were middle of the ground players versus players that were star players, because star players are going to say, do it my way, versus the middle of the ground is just going to be like, here's the way you can improve and how I improved.
Oh, for sure. This is really that bell curve of talent and where it aligns with hard work, which is that hard work can make up for a lot of talent. It really can. However, if you are going to be that absolute standout, you're going to be that Connor Bedard in hockey coming in at 18 years old, tearing up the NHL and just making people look foolish. There's an intrinsic factor of that's just not born into every single person that exists out there. That is that once, twice, third in a generation kind of talent that you're going to get. However, the people that get to that build themselves to that 90th percentile effectiveness, those are probably going to be the ones, like you're saying, those are those mid-level guys. Those are the ones that are going to be able to explain it because they had to break it down themselves, or they had someone break it down for them. And it's more of the logical understanding and being able to break it down and explain it, as opposed to that gut feeling of just intuition and knowing what to do. All right, we beat this one up. We're going to beat it up enough. All right, sufficiently KO'd. We're going to one of the more controversial subjects of the book that we teased earlier, which is trying to unpack the stereotype of, are Asians actually just good at math? And is there any explanation behind this thing? So obviously, like, no, not everyone is going to immediately be good at anything just because of their race. However, if you have learned to do math in Chinese, odds are you're going to be better than someone who learned how to do math in English. The reason being the structure of the language itself. So if you think about the English language, all of our math, or all the words for the numbers, think about them, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Some of them are longer than others. 1, obviously, just 3 letters, very short, kind of 1 syllable. 7 is multiple syllables, a little bit of complex spelling as well. Same with 8. It's, again, very like 1 syllable. However, trying to spell it out and think about it. But then even once we get past those first 10 numbers, then we get to the weird ones, which is all of like the teens. Because we don't say 1 teen, 2 teen, 3 teen, 14. We say 11, 12, 13, 14, as opposed to something like Chinese, which is, none of us here are fluent in it. However, we did listen to the book and it broke it down. So a lot of their numerology is very much like single syllable, short, brief, distinct names for numbers. And they don't suffer from the same issue that English suffers from, which is like the 11 and 12 problem, which is that it's pretty much in Chinese, it sounds like 10-1, 10-2, 10-3, 10-4, that kind of thing. And what ends up happening is that just because of the language structure, your ability to process this information, it requires a lot less time, which means it can take up less of like your internal RAM or your internal like short-term memory. So you can remember more stuff to fill up that space in your head, which means that you're going to be able to pick things up faster, operate faster and more efficiently, and odds are get things correct more. So
yep.
This is one of those chapters that comes at the end of the book because I think it requires the rest of the book to kind of be that preface to understand this concept, which is that small compounding effects can lead to these large overarching things that may seem ambiguous or just like intangible or even uncorrelated. However, if you take the time to really break it down, it's absolutely possible to figure out that, yes, there's a reason for these weird phenomenon to be happening. In this particular one, it just might also happen to be a bit of a taboo.
And another thing that I want to tie it back to the first chapter that we covered, which is like, you know, if you like, to those who have much, many will be like, much will be given. Like when you compare the ease of learning of the Chinese language and the Chinese number system, if it's way easier to learn the number system, then you're probably going to be better at it. If you're better at it, you're probably going to enjoy doing it more. If you enjoy doing it more, you're probably going to do even more of it. And so it has that compounding effect like we had talked about earlier. So like Chinese kids or Asian kids in general, like there will be a stronger predilection of a love of the field, you know, simply because like it's starting out and just like getting this flywheel momentum built, you know, to where the like people just keep enjoying it more and they do it more and they're better at it and it's faster and it's more efficient. It's like as I was reading this book, like I enjoy math and I learned it, you know, using the shitty English system, right? When I say I enjoy math, I don't really have a crazy love for it, but like it makes sense and like it's something that I guess comes naturally or something to that extent. But like fuck, I'm super envious of these Chinese guys that have this fantastic language system that they can learn numbers in that's like super cool. And I was joking around with Sam earlier. I was like, man, I want to learn like Chinese numbers just so that way I can do numbers in Chinese instead of in English anymore. Because like how crazy easy would it be to be like, instead of saying like 845, you say like do da di do do or whatever. I don't speak Chinese or something. Sorry if I get your if I get your numbers all wrong, but like, you know, it's like 100, 1,000, quadrillion, you know, it's like these are some crazy terms. And then like you categorize it in like groups of 3 and it just becomes like super crazy difficult to memorize. So shout out to all the Chinese people out there that have this super cool way of learning numbers and stuff. I'm envious of you guys and yeah, I salute you.
Just so as a point of reference, I'm going to toss this out real quick and kick it over to you, Sam. So one of the studies that they specifically cite for this part of the chapter was they looked at, I think it was 4 and 5-year-olds, and they wanted to see how high they could count. In the US, it was like the American children could get to somewhere in the high teens, maybe 20. And then on average, the Chinese children were getting up to about like 40, 45, 50, all same age. And the hypothesis was that this difference is just in the way that your brain is able to efficiently and just efficiently process the information and work with the tools that you have. Sam, what you got?
Well, so I wanted to add this little squeeze of knowledge here, guys, because what you may think is so magical about the Chinese language for learning math is actually the bane of their like police force existence. So what problem you may not think of is this whole like 1, 2, 10, 20 thing, right? So 10 codes, right? We communicate over radio with 10 codes. It is actually so much more complicated for the Chinese to communicate and understand like a 1074 across the radio. Because for us, it's like, oh, a 1074, that's 2 numbers. That means one thing, right? But actually, if you look up the statistics in China, the number of like problems that come up from radio miscommunications, it's like 10x the kinds of stuff we get here in America.
Interesting.
Dang, that's cool. I like that. Well, I mean, I don't like it, but it's like I had never thought about that. That's maybe they should use letters. There you go,
That's
China.
good. And you should
Use
stop
letters.
thinking about it because I made it all up.
Oh, you
That's
did?
fair.
Oh, damn.
Boo.
That was good. You had me. You shouldn't have said anything. Although it is recorded.
I don't
so
want to spread misinformation to our audience.
That's true. For those of you who just watched that last clip but are no longer watching now, hey, peace be with you, my friends. I hope that you do well in the world.
I hope this information
Sam,
never
you are
adversely
fake
affects you.
news.
All right, so we're going to do a little bit of introspection on this one. So I think personally the reason that this chapter is in the back of the book is that it's almost more of an example of how to use the sort of thinking that the book tries to show, which is that understanding root causes for things allows you to break down phenomena that previously have been only attributed to luck or stereotypes or just weird mysteries of the universe. But this book really it breaks down the process of understanding and really getting into some of the proving certain beliefs wrong, which is the idea that like there are certain taboos that can never be crossed or talked about. Like if you want to talk about the Asians and math thing, it's like, yeah, the stereotype exists because there's a kernel of truth in this, which is that the language is more efficient. I mean, at the same time, it doesn't talk about the moral argument of like, should you be stereotyping your neighbors? I mean, the answer is probably no. However, at the same time, it's like, it's dare to ask the questions that you're not going to see at a surface level and simply just like hand wave away or just reject. It's stacking these small little things and really digging and diving into the root of the problem, or maybe just examining the scenario. So I'm going to try to bring this little meta analysis back to why do we think that RG3 recommended this book to us? Obviously, he's a streamer. We're all streamers. He's in the crypto space. We're in the crypto space. He's trying to build things. I think we're trying to build things. So like what is the wisdom that we're supposed to pull out of this book?
I would say it's cultivate our minds, continue to grow them, as well as continue to grow our network within the space itself.
I see that.
I could totally see him well, not from like a derogatory sense, but like, hey, eat a slice of humble pie. You're not special. Like, understand the world that we live in, you know, be in tune with reality. This book is a fantastic like eye opener for people who never considered this perspective before. And that's not to say that it's like that everything in this book is entirely true. A lot of it's stories and a lot of it's like hypotheses and thesis and stuff. But like there's a lot of good thought experiment, if nothing else, right, that this book brings to life. And so anything that gets people to think and gets people to talk about new ways of thinking and stuff like that is just good information to broadcast out there. And I know that RG3 likes that we think about stuff and that he wants us to think about more things. So that's why I think that he recommended it.
Makes sense. Sam, what you got?
Well, I would hope that it's probably for the same reason that I generally would make a book recommendation, which is that like when you're making a book recommendation to someone and you've like read a whole bunch, there's typically like one or two things that the book targets that you're like, hey, I learned a lot from this experience and the wisdom in this book. I think you would benefit from knowing it. And like, it's not going to be the same if I just tell you, right? So here's a recommendation to go through this journey to like fit this little puzzle piece of knowledge. And I would say that puzzle piece is sort of like what Will said, which is like that, like, you know, we're all here to grow and we're all like, obviously we're all ambitious because if we were here, we're doing more than just sitting and playing video games and trading, you know, coins, right, Nate? So like, I'm just kidding. Nothing wrong with that.
Our boy's making money.
I know he's making money.
Gotta make that money.
But no, I mean, I would say he's probably speaking to that. Like, here I am analyzing like the author's intentions, and it's like I have no idea what his intentions really were. But yeah, I mean, hopefully it would be to help us like understand that time, how much time you are putting into the thing is going to be is going to provide the result of the thing that you're wanting. So it could be an encouragement to like, hey, you guys are building this great space. Here's the key. The key is the time. How much more time can you put into this thing? You know, maybe something like that.
I hear you. When I think obviously this comes from just a place of pure love and trying to help us out, and we appreciate every ounce of it. I think there's two possible kind of messages on this one. The first one is a bit of an offline conversation that we've had with RG3 a little bit, which is obviously a lot of us are very new to this whole content creation and media space and being public figures, so to speak. And one of the questions I've had seen straight up before is like, hey, I don't entirely understand how to navigate this space. How do you find success in this realm? So one interpretation that I have is that this book as a recommendation is to understand like, hey, just keep putting in solid principles. And if you don't hit it out of the park, that's fine. It might just not be your time or the correct place to be. But if you do make it, understand like there's a reason that the thing's lined up, be able to track it and understand why. And then the second interpretation, I think, is just the more generalistic crypto aspect. And this is something that if you listen to RG3 streams a lot, is what he talks about very frequently, is that cryptocurrency, and in particular Hex, is life-changing opportunity. You've already seen it a bit with some of the absolute just massive wealth that has been generated through cryptocurrency investment, project creation, and just getting on the ground floor of these very successful projects very early on. And I think he might be trying to show the world that there's times and places to be at for amazing success, and that this right now in this field is absolutely an opportunity for that. One of the things that I am fond of just shit posting in other people's chats and comment sections all the time is just, well, we're still early. We're so early. And because me personally, I believe it, which is that this is a young fledgling technology. Granted, it's been around for a little over a decade now, but at the same time, like, we've not hit mass adoption. We're still going through plenty of growing pains, and it kind of looks like the potential in this space is almost unlimited or uncapped. And it seems like this is really a new avenue, and maybe not just a full kind of like turn societally in technology and how it pushes people forward, but it's definitely an innovation, and I'll say that much. So the reason that I think this book is relevant to the crypto folks is to understand like there are times and places to really seize opportunity, and this absolutely could be one of them. How's that for an interpretation?
You're talking about the RG3 perspective or the author perspective?
RG3. Why did RG3 give us this book?
Yep. I would agree with that. Pay attention, motherfuckers.
Yeah. I mean, at the same time, though, to read into the bit of the trouble with genius is part 1 and 2 chapters. It's that IQ can take you so far, and there's a lot of skills that are going to get you the rest of the way. Which is that I know one of the things that people have told us the reception that we get when we come into spaces is that they like our energy and they think we're smart. And it's like, all right, cool. We got bases 1 and 2 covered. What are the rest of them? Where do we go from here? Like, good start. How do we keep it going? So,
yep. The momentum is meaningless if you don't build it.
This is absolutely true. All right, gentlemen, we are actually pretty much all through the topic. So we're going to go ahead and roll through some community shout outs before we head to our wrap and talk about what's coming in the near future. So with that being said, Mrs. Producer, if you would mind doing me the honors, I think we might have only one new comment, and it's from Kai. It says, "What is up, ladies and gents? Good to see you, my man. Thanks for showing up. I know this is maybe not one of our more popular streams. However, at the same time, we're putting in good work here, and we appreciate each and every one of you guys that are showing up. And we're trying to add value, not just in creating a group that you can read along with, but actually trying to provide some value in the discussion around it and creating the brain trust, so to speak. If you remember, what was that?
Oh, shoot. Oh, man, I don't remember. The name isn't important, but the brain trust concept is important. Well,
You know,
the name
guys,
is-
Think and Grow Rich.
Think and Grow Rich.
We've
You know,
done so many of these.
Yeah,
We're starting to lose
masterminds.
track. It's kind of wild.
what other freaking crypto channel does all these book things trying to improve everyone's life? Like even like improvement channels, right? They don't do this type of stuff either. They just sort of like throw out random phrases from books and be like, yes, this was from that book from there. I highly recommend you read it. It's like, okay, cool. But we're actually going through it, you know? We actually go through and read it, and then we're like talking about it. And it's just this is the type of value you get with the DJ Roundtable, because there's a lot of different things we do. And I mean, a book club, like literally we're the only people that can claim that, right? So as soon as they're like, oh yeah, you know, I learned it from this book or whatever, and I started doing this to improve my life, that was from the DJ Roundtable, the only people in the space that actually looks at books. This is a good thing, I would say.
It's probably along the lines of one of the principles that all of us here talk about pretty frequently, which is actually just doing the work. Sometimes you just got to put in the hours and actually go through the material self. But then on top of that, it's getting the boys together to really chew on it and think about it and see if you can extrapolate and apply it to other stuff, which is why we do it on the crypto channel. Because it's like, this is not explicitly talking about cryptocurrency and investment and all the macroeconomic stuff that goes on per se. But at the same time, there's the nuggets of wisdom and all the lessons that we're trying to use to build the entirety of our knowledge base. So,
Well, and oh shoot, I had something on that. Damn it! Wow, that was disappointing. I had something. Fuck.
well,
What did you just say, Zenith?
Said that we're doing the work to read the books and then also chew on the knowledge together and really consult and extrapolate.
Yes, that's the thing. In order to like extract the full value out of a book, like there's a couple ways that you can do it. You can read it. You can also like you can physically like read it while you're listening to the audiobook. You can take notes inside of it. You can explain it to other people, and then you can have other people explain it back to you. And so this process right here is us just trying to extract as much value from each book that we read as possible. And I'm super glad that we do this. I know I've told you privately, Zenith, I'll say it publicly, like I am so glad that we have this thing, because like it's created this fantastic tool by which like I'm essentially forcing myself to learn things that I wouldn't normally learn because I said I would do this thing, you know? And so like I'm growing way faster than I ever would have otherwise. And so like thanks to you for creating this channel, and for Sam and Nate and Mrs. McGettit and Jay when he joins us, like, and even the captain for making all these book recommendations, and you know everybody in the community for watching and chatting along and like keeping us honest and keeping us on task and putting out new thoughts and perspectives. Oh, excuse me, sorry about that. Like the more like attention span that we put into trying to understand concepts, the better like we're all going to be as a result of it. So just big shout out to everybody. So that's all I got, and I love it.
Absolutely. I think, shoot, what do they say? The best ways to really learn something is learn it, do it, teach someone else to do it. And those are the little layers of mastery. So yeah, we're always trying to offer you, the audience, value. However, it might be a bit cathartic or just self-improving for us to talk with each other about it and bounce ideas off of each other.
Yeah, I don't know
Because-
anything. I'm just learning as I'm going along here.
Nate, I was going to say hats off to you for this one because I think maybe myself, Sam, and Will came into this one and were like, oh, wow, this book tells us that we all suck and that we shouldn't expect much in life. And then you're over here like, no, this is optimism. This is good.
Yeah, no, it is. Like I said, I had to originally figure this out on my own, and then of course, okay, it's in a book, I guess. All right, whatever. But yeah, no, to me that was optimism because it means like someone like me who went through his entire childhood basically being kind of dumped on, like not going to succeed. I had to figure it out for myself. Oh wait, no, I can make myself succeed, and I'm going to work towards it. So it's like, yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. By the way, oh shoot, we got even more people showing up. If Mrs. Producer, if you don't mind, we're gonna shout some people out. We got Go Fudge Yourself. He says he hasn't read Outliers in years. Well, glad you showed up. If you still remember anything about the book, go ahead and throw in the comment section what you think the thesis is, or like what the big lesson is. We covered it at the beginning of the stream, and a lot of us think that it's the idea of trying to find the exceptional, the ways to be exceptional. Sometimes just comes from the circumstance you're born in. It's the quantification of the luck in business, so to speak. All right, up next we got, I believe, our European friend, Mr. Paul Sachs. El Lu, Mas, Hatinez, and Etan.
Oh,
what language is that?
That's probably Chinese.
Lou Mastina's ton. And then he's got some emojis. There's a hand, a butt, a dick, and a salute. So not really.
That goddamn meme.
Are you saying we're sitting here with our dicks in our hands, or what?
No, it's the meme, dick with butt or whatever.
Oh,
Lou Mas. Oh, he spelled our names backwards. Nate.
Oh, he did.
Zenith,
I'm
Sam,
Ethan.
and Will. That's what it is.
Solved
Look
the
at
problem.
you.
He's a code breaker.
Look at you, Paul Sachs.
Speaking of Paul Sachs's next comment, so he asks, "Are y'all going to cover Lord of the Flies?" Did you guys ever read this one growing up?
I've never read Lord of the Flies. My understanding is it's about the
Children eating each other.
the creation of religion when
Child
else,
cannibalism.
something like that. I don't know anything about it, so
No,
I'm
read this
not
one in
going to
high
say
school.
no.
Yeah, we can cover it. It might not be the most, I guess, self-improvement or crypto relevant, but there's definitely a lesson to be had out of it. I will say that the book is definitely along the premise of kind of like natural order or almost like anarchy and what that kind of looks like in practice, and some allegories for society in there as well. It's a
If I
pretty
remember
decent read.
correctly, Lord of the Flies is basically, I mean, it's like a bunch of children, but the analogy of the book itself has to do with how humans naturally evolve into society.
Yep, that sounds about right. I think there's a bunch of kids that somehow get marooned on an island, and then you just get the story of what happens and how they survive, and kind of the arc that a few different people take. So
I took the liberty of putting that in our DGen Book Club Telegram suggestions chat. For those of you guys who are watching this on either live or on the replay, gang, if you guys want to look at the books that we've covered and see any sort of notes that I might have written or anyone on the team has written, or some sort of topic of conversation you want to talk about regarding one of the books, hop on over to our Telegram group. It is t.me/DGen Book Club. And that's where you can find all of the book club stuff that we've, like, all the books that we've covered. I put resources in there. I put in like some thoughts on and different like interpretations of things, cool little like charts and stuff that I find that have to do with, information in the book, yada yada yada. It's only as valuable as we put information in. And right now it's mostly just an anthology of all of the podcasts that we've done. But like, if people want to talk more about the books that we've covered, and if we have other thoughts and things, like, that's a great place to put them. And we've also got another section in there. It's t.me/DGen Book Club /23. And that's specifically the book suggestions group. So if you guys want to see us cover a particular book, feel free to go ahead and throw the book name in there, the title, and the author if necessary. We try to keep the chats inside of that specific topic. closed off to just nothing but book suggestions. But we have a general topic where people can hop in and look at things and all sorts of stuff. So join the book club if you wanna learn more about book club, and if not, no sweat.
Beautiful. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and go to our wraps. Will, you had us with a good intro there. By the way, shout out to Chad Donnerschwans. He says, hello, fellow crypto bros. Hello to you. Although we are book bros now, and so are you for tuning in. But yeah, I guess it is technically a crypto stream. Nate was talking about trading some meme coins earlier. But yeah, Will, where can the people find you, good sir?
Oh, so the folks can find me at linktree/Will Stevenson. I'll go ahead and drop that link in the chat here now that about 7 seconds have passed since I've said it. So it shows up theoretically at the same time as the people watching live can see it. But that's where you can find all of the work that I've done. You guys can find me generally inside the DGen Roundtable community chat, or just send me a DM on Telegram. That's the best place to reach me. Twitter's all right. I'm on there semi-frequently. But you can find all the links to all of my socials, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, everything in that link tree. That's the best way to reach out and find me. I am going to be traveling around the States here starting this time next week. Actually, I'll be down in Baton Rouge this time next Friday, hanging out with some of the boys and hanging out doing fun, cool stuff. If you guys are anywhere in between Texas and Florida, and then in between Florida and Illinois, then that's the direction that I'm going to be traveling from April 5th all the way up to April 10th. And then I'll be hanging around Illinois for a week, then going to Indiana for a week, then going to St. Louis for a week. So if you're in any of those areas, hit me up and we'll set up a hangout and we'll go, I don't know, throw axes or drink beers, or I don't know, maybe go trick-or-treating or something. I can't, like, whatever, like, the world's your oyster, bro. I fucking love it. So anyways, if you're a Hexkin, hit me up. Or if you're just a person who wants to meet up and hang out, then that's where I'm going to be. Sam, what's going on with you, bro? Where can the folks find you? What you got coming up in the future? Oh, hang on. Before I toss it all the way over, next week I will be hosting the DGen Roundtable Book Club, and we're going to be covering Sci-Vive Chapter 2, which is about body. So how to maximize your fitness and your physical health. So that's all I got. Sam, where can the folks find you and what you got going on in the near future, bro?
People can find me in my main place of contact is probably going to be Instagram at samuel.d.stevenson. Check me out there. Follow me. That's the best place to get a hold of me. But if you want to check out what I got going on, I got a YouTube channel, Bungalows for Bachelors. It's got all kinds of random information, and I do some live streams about learning pretty much everything you might want to know about residential construction. You want to build a home, you want to do a remodel, you want to do something, you want to fix your hole in your drywall, I don't care. And if you want to contact me and ask me questions, I've got a Telegram group now, t.me/BFB success. I'll go ahead and drop it in here. And I'm still setting that up right now, but it exists. So if you want to hop in there and be part of the group, be part of the community. I mean, just earlier today, I watched somebody, I was at a house build. House is already pretty much completely built, framed out, no sheetrock though. And someone had put a wall on top of no foundation. They had missed where the foundation was supposed to go, and the wall was overhanging the edge by like 10 inches, just floating in the air. So if you want to see what kind of wonderful stuff we do in the world of building, that's something that happens. It wasn't my project, but it happens. So check it all out there. If you want to learn how to cook very healthy meals and you love the kinds of knowledge that comes out of the brains of Sam and Will Stevenson, our cookbook is, I just scared Mr. Pumpkin away because I'm yelling again. Our cookbook is in the works and it's almost complete. We're going to be possibly asking for some pre-orders soon. We're only going to make a fixed number. They're going to be hand signed, and I think they're pretty good. So you should look out for us to announce that ready to be, sent out and everything. So that's what I got. Nate, what about you?
Well, tomorrow I'm going to be on Twinkie's channel with this guy up here. And we're going to be looking at a certain chart. Oh, yeah, I also forgot. We're going to have a special guest along with us and Twinkie. It's some guy, I'm probably never heard of him, but Axis Alive. So Yeah, look forward to that one. We're going to be looking over some charts, especially when it comes to specifically going on with the others chart, getting rid of the top 10 altcoins and Bitcoin and all that together to look at the coins like, say, Hex and Pulse Chain and the other ones that you go buying around like Phantom and all them. And we are going to look at exactly what's going on, because what I've noticed in this chart is 3 out of 3 times it seems like we have kind of like a warm-up sort of year, and then all of a sudden it drops where everything crashes and then it spikes and it goes absolutely parabolic. That is the true alt season. And so we're going to be kind of digging down into that, looking into it, kind of seeing what's going on. So that'll be tomorrow at 12 or 1 o'clock Eastern time, 12 o'clock Central Standard Time, and then whatever other times you guys have. So, but yeah, look forward to that. You're definitely going to want to look at that. And I do not have Twinkie's channel up right now, unfortunately. But yes, Mr. Angry Twinkie, he is in our Telegram chat. So we will be posting it in there. Again, tune in, guys. It's going to be huge.
Yeah, that's going to be an awesome stream. It should be very dense with information regarding all the research that we've been doing, specifically looking at what we believe is going to be a chart that kind of helps predict that altcoin season, like you mentioned. But this should be a lot of fun. Again, Nate, myself, Twinkie, Axis. Hopefully he's not too mad about the giving his meme coin an F on the Wednesday episode. But I think he took that in stride and he understands that we love him. If anything, well, he commented back and he said that we put him in the F tier because F is for fortune. Anyways, that's what we got going on here. We got the usual show on Sunday, and then we have a Whiskey Wednesday coming up this next week as well. So if you want to come on and stream, hang out, talk with us, ask us questions that you have, well, that's the time to do so. Looking forward to that one. And then, as always, I am Zenith. You can catch me on the Twitter and Instagram at ZenithDI, or you can check out the meme page and a bit of a edutainment at Hexaco Space Force on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. That is what we got going on here. Like Jay likes to say, we know that time is your most valuable asset, so we thank you every time you spend it with us. And until next time, we encourage each and every one of you to degen responsibly.